The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as personal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional or expert in the relevant field for personalised advice tailored to your specific situation.
It is a lot. And this is why I say get good advice when you're going into retirement, because you imagine the complexity. You've got tax issues, you've got probably estate planning issues that you're considering, you've got your retirement income, you don't know how long you're going to live for, so how long is this pool of money going to last because I'm not working anymore? So, and what can I access in terms of all my government entitlements, like my age pension or any of the concessional cards that might come through to be able to give me those ancillary benefits? So there's so much to, and it's often, it can create paralysis, right? Like sometimes you're not maximizing a lot of this because you're too scared to even deal with it. That's why you need someone who's a professional in this space to be able to get it right for you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Guide, sponsored by Ryker Capital. My name is Tamara, and I am the financial advice practice manager of the business. Very excited today. This is actually a two-part episode. So if you didn't tune into the first episode, you might want to either stop now, do it, and get into this one, or just listen to this one because we've got a lot going on in that other episode that's related. What I'm talking about is investment bonds as a topic. And what we're diving into in this episode is using investment bonds and other types of related products and structures to really affect retirement planning for that retirement, moving into retirement, and estate planning. So to get into that little bit of a technical kind of edge in our topic, we have a special guest, Mr. Grant Hackett. Welcome again.
So thank you very much.
Very excited. I did a little bit of fangirling in the last episode, so you should really have a look at it. I was really excited when I first came to Australia from Canada. I saw Grant in the pool and was cheering him on as a new Australian and really, really excited. And then, Grant is in finance. And we did talk about a little bit about Grant's journey from the swimming pool to finance. So definitely tune into that episode. Anyway, with no further ado, I want to introduce, I have two senior advisors from Ryker Capital on the couch as well. Over to you to introduce your good self, Ricky.
Hello, everyone. Ricky Rechme, senior advisor at Ryker Capital. And looking forward to having a chat with you, Grant, today.
G'day, guys. Ray is senior advisor at Ryker Capital. Really looking to dive into the estate planning side and unpack some of the goodies that sort of comes with the investment bond.
Absolutely, absolutely. I might just to start off, in case somebody hasn't seen the other episode, Grant, just a very brief, what is an investment bond? And then let's dive into how it's used in those areas.
Yeah, just very quickly, an investment bond is an after-tax paying structure. So when you think of investments, you're always looking at what legal structure am I investing through? Is it going to be a company? Is it going to be my own personal name? Is it going to be superannuation? And an investment bond is just another structure to go through. And like superannuation, it's after tax. So, there's no additional tax liability for you inside the structure. And it's all very much set and forget. You don't have to worry about doing the tax returns and everything else like that around this particular structure as well. And you get to choose any investment that you want to.
Those are all exciting things and things that I learned in the last episode. Now, let's think in the context of, let's say, retirement planning. So I know a little bit about super. It's actually part of my remuneration package, I guess, because my employer is making super contributions, and I know it's supposed to be for retirement. How do investment bonds play into this kind of thing when I'm planning for retirement?
I think, when you're planning for retirement, particularly if you're young or if you're middle-aged and, you're well and truly away from preservation age when it comes to accessing your superannuation, I think you need to consider what are all the other structures out there. And quite commonly, we'll use our own personal name, or we might be using something like a trust because we want that asset protection. We'll be distributing money sometimes into a company as well. An investment bond really helps you, particularly at a personal level, to be able to have more flexibility when it's coming into retirement. It's a highly tax efficient vehicle, a maximum tax rate of 30%. Often a lot of our underlying investments sit on an average effective tax rate of 12 to 15%. So, depending on what your tax rate in there, you can, judge whether you've got a tax arbitrage or not. But if you're someone who might be, say, 50 years of age and you think, I don't necessarily want to work full time anyway. I don't want to completely stop working, but I can't access my super. Geez, an investment bond would be great to be able to tax effectively save. Or if you've had it set up for a while at that particular point in time, you can start taking a distribution to say those 2 days that I've dialed down from work, I can now tax effectively take some other income to be able to surplus that deficient income from obviously reducing my work hours. So there's this flexibility element to that's really, really quite powerful. And I know we're going to get to the estate planning side of it in a second, but in terms of retirement, it's just really adding a new dimension to give you more optionality. And I think that's what's really important about it. And even if you are at preservation age and you are, kind of into your later years later years in life, I think what's really good about the investment bond is if you've got a taxable component inside super, which large balances normally do, a lot of people would take that out to then use the investment bond as an estate planning vehicle because it's tax-free on death. So you've got this flexibility coming into retirement. Once you're into retirement, there are still many other uses for the structure as well.
Sounds good. All right. When you're in retirement, maybe can we unpack that a little bit? So I'm in retirement. Yeah. I've got some money cooking away in investment bond. I've got my money in super. What were you kind of alluding to? Where is that flexibility coming? For an example, how might I use those together as two structures I've invested in?
Yeah, so there might be a scenario where you've got some complexity in your family tree. You've got kids that could be divorced, but grandchildren from those marriages. You've got a blended family situation perhaps. You've got a high conflict family, particularly if there's quite large lump sums of money that are going to be distributed, or someone's on the outer a bit, an estranged child, all these sorts of things. And we've seen plenty of different permutations. Yeah. You might go, well, my super, yes, I've got my binding nominations, or I might have a taxable component of my super and I'm leaving it to a non-dependent. So therefore they're going to be subject to a certain amount of tax around that distribution. So a person might just have the investment bond set up because they know it's very tax effective, but really they're not even using it for that. They're using it because it's a great estate planning vehicle where they know those funds are going to be distributed to that individual exactly how they want to. And we've seen plenty of scenarios where people have been, really more towards the end of their life, but one of their children have been looking after them a little bit more, and they just want to leave $50,000 or $100,000 extra just as a thank you, because they've obviously committed that time, and they know if it actually goes through the estate, that there's going to be a fight. And the last thing you want your children fighting over is the wealth that you've accumulated in your life, and then seeing a family that's, could have been very close, but then fractured moving forward. So, so that's one of the really common uses that we see. We also see people that, in really sad and unfortunate situations where they could be terminally ill. They've got a large super balance. They've got a large taxable portion in there. So they want to be able to take that out and have a tax-free transfer to their beneficiaries. So, we see all sorts of scenarios. And if you're thinking about this as you're listening to this podcast, I always say to people, go see a good financial advisor if you think you've got a good bit of complexity in your situation. And we work with financial advisors with our technical team that look through this. So we actually help them produce, okay, this is the situation, this is the outcome that we would love, but I need the middle part. How do we actually execute this and make it happen? And that's what our technical team does, because there is so many scenarios that I've seen, and you're always coming across new ones all the time that make for really complex issues within families, but often you're able to deliver great outcomes through the structure.
Well, it's funny you kind of talk about that, because we were having a chat yesterday in the office because we were coming into the podcast today. And I know, Ray, you were talking about a couple of scenarios and clients where this actually was something you were facing, right?
Yeah, exactly to Grant's point. So obviously one of our existing clients, she had about $1.6 million in pension. Yeah. Now, mind you, she's built this up over a while, but she had a large component sitting all in taxable component. And imagine the money going to the kids who are over the age of 18, the amount of tax they would have paid is almost around 30% tax on the taxable component. So that strategy came really handy, where we simply could take the money out, put that in investment bonds, still very tax effective, and when the money goes to the kids, it pretty much all goes tax free. Yeah. So it's a brilliant strategy for them, because having the alternative to pay tax at the rate of almost around 30% is massive. Almost dishing out $480,000 to the ATO.
Well, it isn't.
we see that a lot, actually. The scenarios that we run, exactly what you're talking about, Ray, is there'll be six-figure tax liabilities that people don't even really know or understand that they've got inside their superannuation if they're going to use it for a vehicle for estate planning. And of course, what a situation was yesterday is not today. So some of those kids back, they could have been dependents, right?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden they've gone from 16 to 19.
Yeah.
The situation's changed.
Exactly.
So, and that is really key in terms of under the SIS Act.
Yeah.
What defines as someone that is a dependent, So, spouse, living together, under 18, or, but it's about 4 key things.
Yeah.
And if that situation changes, so does the tax liability.
Exactly.
And not favourably.
No. And luckily we had a very good Swiss John accountants just looked at the situation and go, well, this doesn't look right. Let's do something about it. And I think it was a key sort of message from the accountant to go, Ray, I think we need to speak about this client situation. It's not looking good. She's gone into the aged care facility, but I think she's got a large level of money that we need to address something to do with the tax side of things.
Okay, that sounds good. And Ricky, I know you work with a lot of clients as well, and you were talking about a few scenarios too.
Absolutely, Tamara. So when we see clients at financial advisors, we look at the entire situation. So we look at what clients' goals are: short-term, medium-term, long-term. And to your point, Grant, like exactly what we would do with super and investment bond, they're all different types of investments available to the client. At the end of the day, it's what's suitable to the client.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, where situation changes, then the strategy might change a little bit too. So when we are talking to the client, understanding where they're at and how to do the middle part, as you were referring to before, that's where the strategies come in handy.
Absolutely. To your point, Rick, it is an evolving thing, right? Like things shift quite dramatically over time. Relationships even change within families, circumstances, divorce, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Your children being divorced, but wanting to leave something to the grandchildren, tax effectively with certainty. So many different, things that have to be considered as part of that process to deliver that outcome. It's funny, I'll give you a bit of insight. We were, when I first joined the business, we rebranded, we changed our name. And the reason we actually changed it to Generation Life is because there is a solution to every generation. Yeah. That's why we did it. So, whether it's a newborn and you want to save tax effectively for private school fees, that's obviously one. Person in the middle of their working life on a high marginal tax rate, so 47%, but wants to tax effectively, save around their investments. So there's an opportunity there for a great tax arbitrage, or just what we're talking about now, estate planning vehicle. People want to be able to leave large amounts of money through the structure. They can actually do that too. So all these different generations, you've obviously got something that you can deploy to be able to support their needs.
Speaking of generation, you spoke about something where you had grandparents, and you talked about it too, but you had an example there. You had grandparents and they wanted to really skip a generation. They were very concentrated on, they wanted to do something specific for their grandkids.
Yeah.
And so that is that generational thing. And then and it was, that can be a bit tricky.
It can be definitely
that
tricky.
conversation.
It can be very, very tricky. Look, obviously the whole sort of thing arose from one of the mortgage brokers where sort of had spoken to the client. And it was mostly around the retirement planning side. And what effectively happened was this, unfortunately, the son particularly didn't have a very good lifestyle. So it was involved in drugs, alcohol. So they wanted to ensure that the money didn't end up with his son, as opposed to they wanted to go to the grandkids. So I think that sort of strategy around putting an investment bond under the kid's name, or the grandkid's name rather, worked really well, because the money will go to them and they had that assurity that money will not be mishandled, if you like.
How detailed, that makes sense to me. How detailed can you control that? Because right now, grandkid is 15, 12, whatever. And then, I don't know what they're going to be like at 18. I don't know what they're going to be like at 25. How do I manage that using an investment bond?
This is something, and I know in the previous episode we spoke about listening to advisor feedback. All the situations, Ray, you're talking about there, we've seen gambling addictions, drug issues, even people with certain impairments, but not necessarily being able to access the special disability trust. And that's why we've built out all these features, because we know when it comes to things like testamentary trusts and having a trustee and trustee discretion, that things don't necessarily play out 100% the way which you like. So what we've been able to create is a future event transfer facility where, we've had someone who was left over $1 million who had a gambling addiction. So they just said, I remember this scenario, they said they have a maximum of $100,000 that goes out per annum. So, and that we want those restrictions on for life. So, and you can change these terms at any point in time if the situation changes as well before the event. So if you don't know when you're going to pass away, but when you pass away, they're then locked in. But you can also have in there a provision around, okay, I only want these restrictions on for a period of time, say 10 years, and then they can have access to the full capital amount. So with young children, Tamara, to talk to your point, if they're 12 years old and you're leaving a large lump sum of $100,000 or $200,000, you're worried about someone else controlling it as well. You can say, hey, they can have access of that when they're age 21. And they can have access to X for X amount of time, and then I'll lift those restrictions. We do a lot of that, and we see all sorts of situations to be able to control what I say, how and when those funds are distributed, and having it with absolute certainty. So you're kind of ruling from the grave, so to speak. And,
so it can be very
and it's
agile.
cost effective as well.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got this trustee that you've got to pay or other fees you've got to pay and tax returns you've got to do. We're doing all that. We're holding it in trust, and we're administering as per your wishes.
Before you ask that question, I'm actually amazed at the fees you're charging because you're doing all that. Because if it was in a trust, I would have to actually pay all of those other
of course. And
expenses.
if it's a small amount, right? And when I say small amount, it's $100,000, which is not a small amount of money. But in terms of the fees inside some of these structures that can be eaten up really, really quickly, basically your investment performance is gone because you're eating it up in a lot of fees and hands that need to be fed around, managing those sorts of structures. So that's where we're a scale game, as we call it. We're like a large asset manager. So, we make our money as we grow. So what we've made a conscious decision is go, well, if we're more cost effective for our investors, we'll obviously get more investors. And that's where we're able to generate revenue as a business. But we want to build these features out because they solve very complex problems and they add a great, sort of customer value proposition that we can provide. So we've made a conscious decision where, you could say, if you're going to do this, you're going to do that adds X amount of cost to it. But we really from the start wanted to make this accessible to basically anybody.
To Grant's point, it can be very agile. You can change policy owners, you can change the beneficiaries. So that works so effectively that if you do decide that down the track that you might want to, you have a bit of a relationship breakdown with that person, you can change those beneficiaries anytime you like. You can have multiple beneficiaries if you want. So that's the beauty about that structure there.
Yeah, I mean, that flexibility is huge, right? That's why it's able to solve these complex problems. And also the other aspect, if you do have testamentary trusts and, other vehicles set up, you can still house the bond inside the testamentary trust as well. And it can operate, in line with the trust deed or, whatever you're effectively trying to drive there. One of the more recent features that we've added is because once that event occurs, so once someone passes away, then it's passed on to the beneficiary under those terms. People have said, what happens if there's a situation where they need to access a one-off lump sum? And we said, okay, we can probably do something around that. So we obviously did a bit of investigating. What we've come up with is what's called a joint signatory. So you can actually have someone who is trusted by the family, by the original investment bond owner who's passing across these assets to be able to sign a one-off lump sum with the beneficiary if something unforeseen actually happens. So you've got this element of absolute certainty, but if you wanted to create a trustee type situation and have someone in there who's a joint signatory, you can actually do that now. So, and you can choose all of this or none of it and make it really simple and vanilla, or you can create as many sort of terms and conditions that you want to.
Well, I had a grandparent who did not trust her kids.
Okay. A real life example now. No names.
Many times, actually.
So she actually made an education bond to her grandkids with no access to because as you said, like before the event occurs, the holder can make decisions, right? They can change the beneficiary, they can pull the money out. But the grandparent decided, no, my kids would have nothing to do with it. It would go straight from me till the time we're alive. We'll manage it. After that point, it goes to the grandkids.
We've done a lot of research in this space to be able to develop some of these features and solve for some of these problems. And it's really interesting. Most people who want to leave an inheritance actually want to leave over 30% to the grandchildren. So it's a big number. So it's not a small amount of change in their estate. The second part is, what are their concerns around when they're leaving these bequests is one is the mismanagement. So if I'm going to leave a large sum, are they going to rock up in a Porsche the next day? That's probably not the best use of the funds. And the second part is tax. So that's the two core things that people are worried about when it comes to transferring their wealth onto the next generation or bypassing a generation. Is it going to be misused, or are they, I guess, end up going to be paying a lot of tax on it?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. I might too. I'm really excited about that. What I'd like to do, and I'm going to kind of go, go back to retirement planning because I want to introduce something else that I know Generation Life has added to the toolkit, and it's annuities.
Yep.
So now I'm thinking, because I said I was not going to disclose my age, but I'm moving closer to retirement than everybody else on the couch, just to be honest. And I'm thinking, I know super, I'm learning about investment bonds, I'm hearing about annuities, and I know I want to, if I'm able to tap into government benefits.
Yeah.
How to kind of, it seems like a lot, Grant. If you can kind of unpack that from a Generation Wealth toolkit point of view, that would be great as a starting point.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, to your point, Tamara, it is a lot. And this is why I say get good advice when you're going into retirement, because you imagine the complexity you've got there. You've got tax issues, you've got probably estate planning issues that you're considering, you've got your retirement income, you don't know how long you're going to live for, so how long is this pool of money going to last because I'm not working anymore? So, and what can I access in terms of all my government entitlements, like my age pension or any of the concessional, cards that might come through to be able to give me those ancillary benefits. So there's so much to, and it's often, it can create paralysis, right? Like sometimes you're not maximizing a lot of this because you're too scared to even deal with it. That's why you need someone who's a professional in this space to be able to get it right for you. We went on this quest. It was funny when we first came into the business 6 years ago, we really wanted to look at the lifetime annuity space because there is this whole baby boomer shift going into retirement, right? And we're living longer and longer all the time. So, if you're retiring at 60, which is really actually quite young, and you're living to your 90s. So we do a lot of the stats. If you're actually I think it's a healthy, relatively wealthy, like own your own home, have a decent amount in super couple, and you've just turned 65, there's a guarantee that one of you is still walking into a financial practice at age 95. So that's what the mortality charge.
That's as long as some people's careers.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you're actually living a whole nother life after your whole working life, right? So you've got to make sure that you're prepared. And so one of the areas that we really wanted to go into, and a lot of the research showed is that people aren't spending their money in retirement or ticking off the bucket list and enjoying themselves because they're worried about how long they're going to live for and how long this is going to last them. And we've actually come up with this term called regret risk. So you get to, your early 80s and then all of a sudden you go, I've got so much money left. My house has gone up again over the last, 20 years. And I haven't done all the things that I wanted to do. I didn't go do all the travel. I didn't go do all the social activities because I was worried I was going to run out of money. And now I'm too old to do them. I'm not physically able to do them anymore. So that's called regret risk. So one of the products that we wanted to bring into the market was there was always traditional lifetime annuities that were very much a set and forget product or CPI linked product. But we wanted to create an investment linked lifetime annuity. Because you're going to be around for 30 years, or, give or take, we thought, well, wouldn't you want an investment return over such a long period? You might have a little bit more volatility in there. So we've got an investment linked lifetime annuity. So one, it's linked to your investment return. So if you want to stay in you're in your account based pension and you're in a balanced fund, you can choose a balanced fund. If you want high growth, you can choose high growth. If you're super conservative and want to go to cash or fixed interest, you can do that. The difference with our lifetime annuity is over that 30-year period, say, you can change between these investments as you change your risk profile over time and through those years. One of the other big benefits, and this is what you were just touching on, is the fact that you get a discount on the assets and the income test. So depending on what your financial circumstances are, it means you can access some or more of the age pension, and obviously all of the benefits that come with that, such as your pension card and your discount on your PBS or your rates and other benefits that come along with that. So you're kind of looking at, okay, I can get an investment return. I also know that I'm never going to run out of money. So we will pay you whatever that unit price of that investment does over that period. That is guaranteed. We're 100% reinsured by the number one rated longevity risk manager in the world called Hanover Re that operate out of Hanover in Germany.
I've heard of them, yes.
Yeah, so that's our reinsurance there. Okay. So you've got that safety of a what is it, a AA minus balance sheet from S&P credit rating, which is the same as our big four banks in this country, just to give that a little bit of context. So you've got that sitting behind it. So you've got, okay, I've solved for longevity risk. I'm getting investment returns. I'm able to get more of the age pension. And you know what? I can spend my account-based pension. People often spend double than what they would have otherwise. And I can enjoy this part of retirement and not have all this stress and anxiety, which is, I often thought when we were developing this product, would I sell it to mum and dad? I'm like, 100% I would, because I know it would give them a better retirement.
Well, I know you and I were talking because I know you see a lot of pre-retirement moving into retirement client. So let's say if that was, so does that mean that, so I've got money in super and I make a decision at some point that I look at an annuity plus an account-based pension or a combination? Can I do that kind of, is that the kind of work that you do with the clients?
Absolutely.
Making those decisions?
When clients, or when we see retired clients or about to be retired, we sort of have that strategies in place, what they can have. So by the time they do retire, they can access not only just the account-based pension or an income stream, but also some government benefit. Going back to the investment bonds that we are talking about, I even had a situation where we had to, because as Grant alluded to, Centrelink does means testing. So they look at asset and income test in order to...
That I find complicated. That seems, there's two tests there. And I'm not good with tests, Ricky. So can you please just dive into that a little bit? Okay.
So you have an asset test and an income test.
Yeah.
Depending on the assets and income that a client, single or couple have. And then based on that, Centrelink would do a determination and would go, based on your asset or income test, you'll get a certain amount of money. And the test is the test that gives you the lowest benefit is what you will get. So we could have instance.
So I could pass on the assets or fail. I could fail on the income and pass on the assets, and then the assets knock me out.
Exactly, because if you failed on income, then you don't get anything.
Well, so far not happy about this, but I'm getting it. Now what do I do? So how does that have to do with what Grant was saying?
So we had instance where we had to put going back, taking a step back. So depending on the client situation, if it's asset or income tested, then
it's normally the asset test that they get on, isn't it?
It's normally the asset test. Yeah.
But I had an instance where a client was income tested. So what we had to do, and it was only a slight amount, I don't have the figures fully in my mind, but we had to get a investment bond through a trust structure.
So
because investment bond under a trust
doesn't distribute.
They don't have income because they're internally.
Because that's what you said earlier. Yes. Okay.
So and another big thing. So we offer what we call the Bear Custodian Trust, or BCT. We offer that for free as well. We don't charge that for these situations. So if you're income tested and you're getting struck out on that, you use what we call the BCT and have the bond inside of that. And then you're obviously, that's not counted then towards the income test. And then all of a sudden you've got this big kicker in age pension. So we've kind of got two products which are really good for your social security entitlements.
Why are we talking about this more? These should be...
Ray, that's why Grant is on this podcast.
Well, it's funny. We try not to overwhelm people to be honest, because there's a lot to it. But we really innovate a lot. We love innovation is one of our core values. You'll see the innovation hub at work and the innovation room. We really try and live by that, and we're really looking at ways to be able to add more features. And there's kind of three products that you could look at. That you could go, well, I could get my lifetime annuity. That's going to could help me on the assets test on that one because of the discount. Then I go the BCT, the Bear Custodians Trust, have an investment bond in there. That's going to help me more on my income test. And then we've got another product that's actually called a funeral bond. Now, a funeral bond, you're prepaying your funeral, so it's up to $14,000. This is a cracker because you get the discounts both on the assets and the income test, which is the only product that does that. So we have scenarios that we're running for clients where you take out all these three products and you just watch their age pension go through the roof once you have a combination of all of this together.
So it sounded like me before, and it is very, very technical. It's you working as an advisor with maybe the tech team at Generation Life, really to unpack what the options are to try to really optimize.
Absolutely. To even take it to next level with the client we were looking at, we had to do two investment bonds. What we did gifting. So we did a gift. In order to reduce the assets, the investment bonds were broken up as to explain it better, the client was an asset test in this instance. So gifting is another way of reducing assets. So we did $10,000 gift, and then you can only do $10,000 a year and 30 over 5. So what we did was we did $10,000 the first year because client wanted to do $100,000. Right. So we did $10,000 the first year. Had we done the full $100,000, $10,000 is taken off, and then the $90,000 counts as client asset for the remaining 5 years.
Still counted,
So what we did 10 in the first year, and then July we did 10 in the second year. So if you look at over the rolling 5-year period, it's not 90,000, 80,000 counting as an asset.
Yeah.
So that also reduces clients' assets ability to be able to Centrelink friendly, and then we put it into an annuity.
Yeah.
And then that gives them that
Then you got another 40% off the 80.
Yes.
Just,
So you're kind of doubling down on that.
it's just different strategies. Again, depends on client situations.
Yeah.
It just depends on how we can structure it, be it under a trust, be it under investment bond or an annuity. I can give you another example where I had done an annuity for aged care client where the annuity pays client an income stream for the rest of their life and at a good rate. And it gives them that Centrelink asset reduction and income reduction. And not only that, the estate at the end of it gets the entire capital back.
Yeah.
So the beneficiaries are happy, clients happy because they're getting regular income. They're Centrelink effective.
Yeah,
So it could
their
really
aged care fees and the cash
Aged
just
care
coming
fee comes down,
Yeah, so
And that's the important part for the client is it's the material differences that Centrelink makes. So some of these products that Grant's talking about is so beneficial that all they want sometime is that pension card.
yeah,
Right?
Oh,
To
What's
get
the
those medical
ancillary benefits?
and
Yeah.
all the other ancillary benefit that follows from there. Whether it's your free rego, your driver's license fees gone away, you get discounts on your rates, water and medical, right? How good.
And I've paid tax for 40 years. I want that card. That's how everyone
Determined
feels
to get
about
it
it.
any which way.
Well, we do exactly out of the words of our clients' mouths. You know, that's for sure. And for me, it kind of twigs on what you said around that. I'm exposed to an annuity. I have the growth of the market. I can have exposure to market growth, but I have actually a floor on how low it can go. That's the difference between that and an account-based pension, having your money there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, pretty much. So to that effect. So there is different types of annuity products. So that one you can have the capital protected one. So we're not offering that one. So we're just in the investment linked space.
Yep.
Over time, we'll obviously produce more products as more demand comes from that end. But yeah, you can certainly get a lot of benefits out of this. Like depending on the situation, what age they are, are they going into aged care? Are they not? You kind of determine all of these sort of factors. And it's funny because I feel like there's just so many people that if they're not getting advice, they're just leaving so much on the table
Exactly.
that they wouldn't even know.
Exactly.
That they wouldn't even know. And they think paying that advice fee, that scares me a bit. And it's like, but you're going to make all that money back in the first year. And then you're just going to be, in a huge surplus as opposed to what you were really just giving away before.
Yeah.
So
There's an opportunity cost in not getting good advice. I think that is what you actually just pointed out.
the right product sets for your particular set of circumstances, your age, your risk profile is absolutely critical to maximizing your retirement. But what we actually talk about is like that's a very sort of rational, quantitative thing to look at. What I love about advice is it removes the emotional distress.
Yep.
It's the anxiety of like, am I going to run out of money? Am I not? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I maximizing my benefits or am I not? Like it's all those sorts of emotional issues and challenges that's what we try and more solve for. And that's how we kind of position. It's like, do things with certainty, maximize your outcome and also enjoy your retirement because you deserve to. And I think that's what's most important.
We were talking about that yesterday. It's a very emotional retiring because you're used to, we're all in the workforce. I'm used to, the 15th of every month, I get paid and I've got, around that, but I'm moving into a position where I'm not, that's different. And I have to organize that myself or with my professional team. Plus, there's all the other emotions involved that you said. Plus, as you age, there is less capacity to kind of really absorb stressful things. And plus, too, you don't want to move into retirement and have to think about this stuff. You want to have some fun. Is that what you're talking about
you
the
want
emotion?
to have some structure that allows you to have a great time.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about
it. And to really, really enjoy it. And a lot of this stuff, like I said, because it is complex because the way it's all set up, right? Like it's the way the system actually runs. And it's not a simple system. And it comes with that complexity. It comes with the jargon of financial services around it as well. So that can create that paralysis. But the sooner you can go, okay, I've actually got to do something around this. I'm not a specialist in this. I was really good at X, Y, Z through my career, but I'm not, I'm not my own lawyer. I'm not my own financial advisor. I'm not, so get someone who is a specialist in that field, who is up to date on everything. Because the other aspect aspect that, is really critical to appreciate too is the fact that the thresholds around these things are always changing.
Exactly.
Whether it's assets test or income test or, whether all of a sudden there was two of you around and your spouse has passed away and now you're single, the dynamics have changed for you once again, that you've got to consider, what do I do now? How do I manage this? Or was the person who passed away the one who managed the finances in the relationship too? So you want to make sure if you are that person, and unfortunately if something goes wrong with you first, you've set it up for the person that's around that doesn't understand that stuff quite as well too.
That was actually in my brain. So I think we're in sync here. I was thinking of my parents have passed away a long time ago, unfortunately, but my uncle and my aunt. My uncle now has dementia, and he is unfortunately going to be passing away. Yeah. And she had some stress because that didn't happen the way that you said it as well. How flexible are these annuities when you've got a couple situation? What happens there?
We've created actually, and again, being an innovative firm, we're always listening to that market feedback in terms of innovating around this sort of stuff. So we've actually got our lifetime annuity, that income stream can default to the remaining spouse. Okay. And it's actually, if it's non-super money as well, it can default to anyone that you want to who's age 50 and plus. So, if you're quite old and you've taken out one of these in your late 70s and you've got children that are a bit older but not necessarily good with money, that income stream then can default down to them for the rest of their life and be linked to that investment that you want to as well. Okay. So we're trying to create more and more, sort of options without trying to overcomplicate the features, but say, hey, if you are the one that manages the money and you want to make sure that income stream lasts them a lifetime, you can do those sorts of things as well. And again, they'll get all those benefits on assets, income test, or whatever it might be around, Centrelink entitlements.
I saw the wheels turning in your brain when you said that too. Because
look, I think even from the last point, it was like it is such a minefield because all these rules are ever so changing. Yeah. If they're not changing at the superannuation level, they're changing at the Centrelink level. They're changing at the tax level. Yeah. So to sort of marry up all these strategies to get an outcome can be quite a complex and minefield structure because you've got to make sure that one is talking to another. And they're all working in harmony to get the best outcome you can possibly get.
And they're updated when one of them changes. That's the thing.
That's the certainty in life. There's going to be change.
Exactly right.
Especially because, as you said, we could be in retirement for as long as we are working lives where potentially, and things are going to change. There's going to be inflation while you're talking about those other things. People are going to pass away. Things are going to happen with the other generation coming up.
Yeah, and inflation's a really good one because it's obviously very topical over particularly the last 18 months and with interest rates changing so dramatically. But it's one of the reasons that we love the investment linked annuity because if you took out a lifetime annuity that was potentially linked to a very low interest rate environment, you mightn't be keeping up with inflation anymore, particularly if it was just set and not linked to CPI. So where if you're linked to investments, whether it's fixed interest, whether it's a diversified fund where you've got a mix of everything, you want to make sure that your purchasing power doesn't go backwards. Yeah. So that's why it's important to go, I've got a lifetime annuity, I'm solving for longevity risk, but I also have got to make sure that the investment that sits in that lifetime annuity doesn't erode my purchasing power. And what that means for, obviously everyone at home, that means what a dollar buys today, obviously that dollar buys less tomorrow. Yeah. You want to make sure your lifetime annuity that dollar continues to buy the same, if not more, in future years.
Thank you so much. I know you're a busy man and we really appreciate you coming for not one, but 2 episodes.
Pleasure. We'll punch out 2. It's easy.
It was pretty good. It was
a great chat. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so excited. It's really raising that awareness. So investment bonds, annuities, making sure that you get your ducks in a row before you start investing, talking to the right professionals as a professional and really taking advantage of, the technical teams out there and the support that we have as well. Thank you, Grant Hackett.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Grant. Really appreciate your time. Cheers. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for listening and looking forward to building the next episode in the next podcast. Thank you very much.